Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to go over the fact that I finished Anna Karenina. Yes, I finally finished it despite my midlife crisis that is affecting my mood in every aspect of life. I was able to at least be consistent with my Anna Karenina reading. So I started reading it very last week of February, and I finished it just this past, yesterday really, to be honest. I read it primarily during the week, and I think I read it at a very good pace. I read it about 20 pages of it per day during the week, so Monday through Friday, which led to about 100 pages per week. And because I was reading it at as an ebook, and that ebook was 740 pages long, that means about 7 weeks. There were 3 weeks I couldn't read because I went to Korea, I went skiing, and then just work being busy. There was 1 week where work was just too busy and I couldn't read anything. But for the most part, yeah, about 100 pages a week. And I feel like that was actually a very good pace because it allowed me to really get engrossed into the story, and it allowed me to finish at chapter ends that made me want to read on. So it gave me something to anticipate and something to look forward to on the very next day when I could pick it back up again. I think if I had tried to read more than 20 pages a day, I know there was one day I read 40 pages and I did feel like it tired me out because Anna Karenina, it's an emotional book. There's a lot of drama going on, a lot of mental fatigue within the characters that leads to mental fatigue within myself, the reader. So I think really 20-30 page per day reading pace was just absolutely perfection, and I really recommend trying it that way because it felt right. Now, I read the Constance Garnett translation. I don't like PV and PNV. I've come to realize PNV being, they're basically the translators of Russian literature these days. PNV stands for Richard Pevere and Larissa Volokonsky. They've won, well, they're like winning awards now, I believe. So my copy of the Brothers Karamazov is the PNV translation. This book I haven't finished. I read a long time ago. I don't remember. I wasn't enjoying myself. I read 150 pages of this and gave up on it. But I read Crime and Punishment in the PNV translation, and I read The Idiot in the Crime and the PNV translation. So all the Dostoevsky I've read have been in the PNV translation. And for me personally, I wonder if my lack of fondness for Dostoevsky is because of the translation versus the actual content itself. I always feel like the translation, for me personally, I mean, it's quite lauded and people have applauded. It's close translation of the Russian, but I don't think translations need to be as literal as maybe PNV does. And I prefer better flow in my writing. I think Constance Garnett gives you that, because there's a certain point. Yes, you want accuracy with translation, and this is something I will discuss at one point eventually, but you want accuracy in translation. But at the end of the day, when you're done with the book, you're not going to remember whether the translator chose this word or this or that word. So basically, if she was wearing a Azul colored dress and someone's like, well, actually it's an aquamarine, like that kind of stuff, while it's good to have the accuracy when you can provide the accuracy, for me, doesn't matter if the work is just unreadable and it's not pleasant to read and it doesn't have a flow. And I really struggle with PNV, where I just don't think they have a good flow with them. And sometimes I feel, and again, I don't know if it's a PNV or Dostoevsky issue, but sometimes I feel like the translation feels contradictory to itself. Like they'll use a word that represents comparison, but like the two segments of the sentence don't feel like they should be comparing each other. It feels like the latter half of the the sentence is actually sort of acknowledging the first, and it's like supporting the first, but they'll add like a but or a however and things like that. It just feels clunky. So I think if I do end up reading the brothers, if I try to read this book again, the brothers Karamazov, I think I will try the Constance Garnett version of this book just to see if it's a Dostoevsky issue or if it's a translation issue for me. But having read Anna Karenina, and Anna Karenina is definitely a lot easier to read than, or Tolstoy, I should say, is a lot easier to read than Dostoevsky. Definitely much easier. But I also do want to credit that to Constance Garnett. I think she just makes the writing so much easier. And then especially in terms of Anna Karenina, which definitely has this sort of romantic aura behind it, an aura of drama and true human interaction via not so much philosophical issues as Dostoevsky likes to do, but more just personal human issues, relationship issues, things like that. So I did read the Constance Garnett translation in the ebook, the one provided by Project Gutenberg. If you're interested, Project Gutenberg provides free online versions of many classics that are not under copyright. So if you're in a country where, for example, the US, where copyright laws work out for you, yeah, you can definitely download those for free, and it's a really, really great resource. So that's how I read Anna Karenina. So yeah, 20-page pace per day, Constance Garnett, we're feeling really, really good about it. So how do I feel about Anna Karenina as a whole without getting into spoilers in this first part of this video? I really enjoyed myself. As I said, because of the reading pace, I was really able to get into the story. I was really able to interact with all the characters. My favorite character was the character called Levin. So basically, Anna Karenina, although Anna Karenina is the titular character, really the story focuses on two characters. Herself, Anna Karenina, and the character called Levin. And they kind of provide a contrast to each other. Anna Karenina is definitely a woman of high society. She loves being in the middle of a ball. She loves being the center of attention. Not so much asking for it, but she knows she has it. She knows people are looking at her. She's very cultured. She's well-spoken. She's very much admired. While Levin is someone who wants to be away from Russian society, he'd rather frolic in the countryside. He'd rather do more manly things, do labor-intensive sort of activities in the countryside, being shoulder to shoulder with peasants, for example, rather than the high elite of Russian society. So you have these two characters that provide a contrast to one another, and all of that centers around the story of Anna Karenina, who falls in love with Vronsky, and because of that, she has to sacrifice this social aspect of her life for the man that she loves, and then it just goes from there. So without any spoilers, we follow Anna Karenina and her relationship with Vronsky, and then we follow Levin and his attempt at a relationship, and then all the characters are pretty much related to each other via marriage or just basically family relations, basically. So really, really beautiful book. In terms of the writing, I really enjoyed it. There were some moments that were just I love the descriptions. So there's this one passage here that I just thought it was just so random, but I loved it. It was this character that has nothing to do, but Levin is talking in a group, and there's this character called Sviatsky, and it says, Sviatsky was sitting sideways with one elbow on the table and a cup in one hand, while with the other hand he gathered up his beard, held it to his nose, and let it drop again, as though he were smelling it. Like, it's such minute, little, unnecessary, but it's such a beautiful, like a wonderful description of a very human, random thing that you might do. Like, even for me, like last night I came back from a yakiniku restaurant, a Japanese barbecue restaurant, and I was smelling my hair on the train to make sure I didn't smell like of barbecue meat, basically. So it's not something you would think to describe when you describe someone sitting on a train or sitting in a living room or doing anything. It's not something you would think about describing. It's almost kind of like, oh, that's kind of weird, but it's also a very natural human gesture to do, where you're just like, you know, I'm gonna pick up my nails, and for some reason, I'm gonna do whatever. Maybe some people like to smell random things. I don't know, but it's a thing, you know. And I just love that. And there's just these little nuggets that you're just, it's so random, but it makes so much sense when it's presented to you. It's like, yes, that is what humanity is like. That's what we are like. And I really love that. And I mean, and actually I was very happy that I read the ebook, because I was able to take a lot of notes. I was able to write down a lot of quotes that I enjoyed, and I put those into my library thing profile. But yeah, I just really enjoyed myself. It's not a 5-star read for me because it is kind of emotionally exhausting. Anna Karenina is very tiring to read about, but the thing is, you understand her, or at least I understand her, and I'll get into that more when it comes to the spoiler section of this video. But I think what's really wonderful about Anna Karenina is, I forgot to mention, is that this is almost kind of the second time I read this book. I started reading this book again as an ebook maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, where the rainy season had started, and I didn't want to carry a book in my bag because I was afraid it was going to get wet. And I hadn't ever tried reading ebooks before, so I thought it would be a good moment to try and read, to test this new way of reading books. And so I chose Anna Karenina, and I just read on my 10-minute commute train my 10-minute commute train back from work. And so just 20 minutes a day I was reading Anna Karenina, and I read about, I would say, maybe 3/4 of the book. But rainy season ended, and then the summer started, and I started riding my bike to work, and then that became just really pleasurable, and then I ended up just riding my bike to work all year, and stopped commuting by train altogether. So I lost that commute by train, and so I lost that opportunity for like those 20 minutes a day where I could read Anna Karenina. So I got really far into Anna Karenina at that point, but I was never able to finish it, even though I was enjoying it at the time as well. So this was my second chance reading through the book. And the thing I want to say, and the reason I got into that little digression, is the fact that the thing that is quite remarkable about Anna Karenina is that reading the book, I realized you could read this multiple times and follow different aspects of the book. So you could really read it and just follow Anna Karenina. You could really read it and just follow Levin. Then you could read it just to get Tolstoy's perspectives on religion. Then you can read it to sort of to really study and get a glimpse of Russian society at the time. Then you can read it again and really look into the politics of behind leading peasants and whatnot, and land reform and things like that. So the thing about Anna Karenina that's so interesting is that there are so many layers that are brought together with the story of Anna Karenina at its middle, at the crux, that's sort of tying everything together. So with that, you get a really amazing immersive experience where you really know who the characters are and what time period they are, what the social issues, the social constructs, and the social pressures there are on the characters at that moment, because you're also given a pretty good glimpse at Russian society as a whole, both within the cities but also outside of the cities. And because of that, it really gives you an opportunity to really delve into Russian society. So again, Anna Karenina, I could definitely see someone reading it over and over again just to really focus on different aspects of the book and get a really good feel for those aspects. So really fantastic. So as a whole, again, really enjoyed my time reading this book. I really thought it was fantastic. I'm so happy that I finally finished it. And if it's been a book on your list of, yeah, I definitely want to read that, then yeah, just pick it up soon, because it's such an easy read. It's a really pleasant, easy read. It's a little emotionally exhausting as we get to the end, but it is very, very wonderful. So now, if it's possible, I would like to get into the spoilers, because I have the feeling that a lot of people watching this video have probably already read the book before, and they just want to see how I reacted to the book, or they just finished reading it and they kind of want to share in the in that feeling of, oh my goodness, what did you think? What did you think? So I definitely want to get into spoilers now. So if you are done and you haven't read the book, I will see you in my next video. And for the rest of you, let's start now. All right, getting into spoilers. Once again, we're getting into spoilers. So full on spoilers until the end of the video. So we all know that Anna Karenina, are they gone yet? The people who are still here? Okay, so we all know that Anna Karenina does die at the end. Now, I'm going to tell you, I had already seen the movie before I ever read the book, the movie with Keira Knightley. So I was aware that she commits suicide by the train. I was very much aware of that, and that didn't take away from enjoying the book. It really did nothing. Granted, I'm not someone who is as affected by spoilers. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I kind of wish I didn't know that. But sometimes actually knowing the spoiler can actually create greater anticipation and excitement for something. So it can go both ways for me. So I was aware of the plot of Anna Karenina before I had started reading it. But that didn't really change my reading experience. And it was actually really interesting to see how much Tolstoy foreshadows and basically tells you what's going to happen at the end of the book so early on into the book, really. Just the fact that he's giving that segment where the initial person had died by the train, and the thought process that are going through all the characters. He pretty much tells you, this is how it's going to end. Now let me tell you how we get there. And I really thought that was pretty, well, just truly interesting to see that what was actually very obvious foreshadowing. So for me, I have to say again, Levin was my favorite character. Now, there are aspects of Anna Karenina that I want to discuss because they are definitely something I related to, unfortunately, quite heavily. But Levin was definitely my favorite character. Now, he's not the best character, but I do think he shows growth. Now, is that the type of emotional growth and emotional or character development that I would want to see from a character? No, not necessarily. Levin is not someone I would be friends with. He's not someone I would probably enjoy talking with. I think we would have different views on society. But I appreciated his growth. I appreciated that he had change. And because of that, it made his story very interesting. My favorite parts with Levin are his very first interactions when he goes back to the countryside, before he marries Kitty, which him marrying Kitty, I mean, she's such a boring character that I don't really care about her, to be honest. But yeah, so before all of that, before his marriage and he changes his life around, his interactions with the peasants and his frustrations with the peasants of, trying to show them better methods to what they're doing, and they're being like, no, we're not going to do that. Like, I absolutely love that because it is so true. It reminded me of being a teacher and, trying to talk to my students, saying, have you tried this method? Have you tried this method? And they're like, well, yeah, but we don't care. We don't want to do it. So we're just not going to do it. And it's frustrating because it's not even so much as having a savior complex or a hero complex, but it's just, or wanting to prove that you're better than someone else. Although I think Levin definitely has that aspect to him, and I don't know, maybe I do as well. I mean, I'm not, I'm a hypocrite just as anybody else is. But there's definitely an aspect where something's gonna work, and something like trust. It'll happen. It's gonna work. Like, we can do this, and if you really want to collaborate, it'll help me, but it'll also help you. Like, you'll have less work to do. It'll be less labor intensive. You'll have more money. And they're just like, no, we're not gonna do that because we've always done it this way. So I really love the interaction between Levin and the peasants in the countryside. I thought those were incredibly humorous, but it really clearly showed his frustration. It showed really the dynamic behind the upper class society trying to interact with lower class society. And it really shows that classism is a thing, it does exist. And it's not an easy solution to just be like, oh, hey, we're friends now. It definitely exists. Again, going back to when I was a teacher, I was definitely treated as the little rich white girl teacher trying to come in and like do whatever, which was very not correct on the part of my students, but I don't blame them for having that viewpoint due to, you know, their background and what and their experiences. But it is definitely very frustrating when you think you're at least trying to do good and you're just being dismissed just because of your status, basically. So I really enjoy the aspects with Levin. Now he can be very misogynistic. There's one part where he says, there are women and there are ... I've never seen exquisite fallen beings, and I never shall see them. But such creatures as that painted French woman at the counter with the ringlets are vermin to my mind, and all fallen women are the same. So, I mean, Levin is like 32 years old. His future wife, Kitty, is only 18 years old. He's definitely a male with, you know, she has to be pure, she has to be virginal, she has to know me and only me, and she has to have not been corrupted by society. Now, we have to be reminded the time period, that at that time period, that's how it was. But from a modern viewpoint, definitely, it's like, you and I would not be friends. Like, no. The whole concept of fallen women, let's stop that. Let's get rid of that. Because for some reason, fallen men are okay, but fallen women are not. So that's just ridiculous. So yeah, Levin is not a perfect character. He's not a man. He's not the perfect man, but that's what makes him interesting. That's what makes reading about his journey interesting. And that's why I was much more fascinated with all the passages that include him that I did maybe say Anna Karenina. Now, speaking of Anna Karenina, so we all know that Anna Karenina was married. She was married to Alexei Karenin. They have a young son named Sertsosa, and she leaves him when she falls in love with a man named Vronsky. And basically, the whole book being about the fall of Anna Karenina, I think, is just fascinating. I think really Tolstoy really nailed that mentality that women can have. And I say that as a woman who has suffered from the same sort of thoughts Anna Karenina has had. I have suffered. I still suffer from them, unfortunately. And in the future, I presume I will suffer even further from those kind of thoughts. But the thing is that Anna Karenina, with her fall from society, she shows great frustration that she is basically going back to that fallen woman quote. She is being seen as a fallen woman, basically, and Vronsky is still seen as this great man in society, even though he's the one who has caused her to fallen. So he shares no fault because he's just doing what a man does. But Anna Karenina is at fault because she's gone to she had a husband, she had a life, she was a proper woman of society, and she let that go for the sake of a man. So it really just shows the hypocrisy between the interactions of men and women in society, which very much still exist at this time. Now, skipping forward to the last moments before her death, what really fascinated me was basically, I mean, the whole thing that led to Anna Karenina's death is just the fact that she became very paranoid. So she lost her relationships. She fell out from society. She's trying to build this new life in the country, away from society, to find purpose for herself. Because again, she's very well educated. She's very well spoken. She's very well cultured. Like, she is very much a well-desired aspect in society. We need people like that, but she is being kind of wasted in the countryside, and so her having to stay at home while seeing Vronsky being the great man in society, she takes that very hard. And as she starts to sort of crumble under this new mental state where she doesn't feel as capable as she used to be. She feels fallen, she feels undesired, rejected, thrown away, etc. She starts to think that Vronsky also feels these things about herself. And so she starts to create these wild fantasies now that he is disgusted with her, he doesn't love her anymore, he doesn't be with her anymore, and that even that he has fallen in love with another woman when he is still very much in love with her. But she's fallen into this this horrible mental paranoia about her place in society that can be very, very difficult to leave once you enter that mental space state. And this is something which, although the maybe the trigger for it is different in my state, at least it is something I'm very much have experienced myself, that sort of mental state. And it's something I definitely still experience on occasion. So in part 7, when she writes, and I can't write again, I can do nothing, can begin nothing, can alter nothing. I hold myself in, I wait, inventing amusements for myself, the English family, writing, reading, but it's all nothing but a sham. It's all the same as morphine. He ought to feel for me. So I mentioned a midlife crisis. These are kind of the thoughts that I'm going through. So very similar. Like won't go into more specifics, but these are definitely feelings where it's just like, you just get to a point sometimes where you're going to try so hard, you create something from yourself, but it just feels like it's all for nothing if you don't have someone who cares for you, right? So you don't have someone who if you don't have someone who you feel loves you. Like, I think human beings as a whole want to be loved, want to be desired, want to know that they have a place, not just in society, but in someone's heart. And when you feel like you've lost all of that, you definitely can feel a lost sense of purpose, and a lost sense of who you are and what your role is and what you're here for. So it's definitely something I very much identified with. Then later, when she says, all the most cruel words that a brutal man could say, he said to her in her imagination, and she could not forgive him for them, as though he had actually said them. And that is the worst thing that can happen to the brain, where you get to a point where you just, and I think women are most at fault for doing this kind of thing, where you just start overthinking and you replay situations over and over again, and you create conversation for the other person so that you can react to that and either say the things that you've always meant to say, or say the thing that you did say but in a better manner, or maybe you want to apologize for something you said and you want to give yourself the opportunity to apologize. Basically, you create these situations in your head and it almost becomes real, all these things. Like, you create a new personality for the person that you're thinking about. And it's incredibly mentally draining. It's emotionally draining. It's really just exhausting. And Tolstoy, I think, is so excellent at showing those emotions that women can very easily go through, and showing them, but also explaining it, and showing that Anna is still an amazing woman, but she's just let herself fall into this mental state that basically she created by herself, but was aided by the fact that society basically just rejected her. So I really, really felt for Anna. She's exhausting to read. Her, again, that 20 page per day reading pace was very necessary, because she is exhausting to read about. But it makes sense, because these are incredibly exhausting thoughts. I have exhausted myself. I have, gone to the point where I'm just like, just shut up, stop. Like, thinking these things do nothing. They serve no purpose other than just to take you down the road that you don't need to be down. And you're tired of it, and definitely people around you are tired of it. Just stop, So I think Tolstoy's ability to be able to really show that and write about that without having Anna feel like a frivolous, silly woman, I think was just absolutely marvelous. So that's all I really wanted to say about Anna Karenina. I mean, no, I could say more, but it's already a 30-minute video. But I'm very happy with that. It was such a good experience. I'm happy that I finally actually finished the book, and it'll definitely leave an impression on me. It's definitely a book, again, easily rereadable, definitely something you can read and you can identify with very, very all the different characters and really just get into their mindset, and it can also help you process your own thoughts and whatnot. Now, I didn't mention the ending, the very famous ending with the fact that Anna Karenina dies in part 7, but then there's a part 8 which sort of just wraps around this the story. People kind of feel it wasn't as successful a part. It wasn't as well thought out, or almost a lot of it wasn't necessary. I think it was interesting to see how so for example, Anna Karenina, you can get wrapped up into your mind so much and everything becomes about you, and you feel like society is just doing all, you let society harm you, but the reality is you'll be gone and society will have forgotten you. People move on and they will have forgotten about you. And I think that part 8 really shows that very well, even if it's not the most interesting way of showing that. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed discussing or listening to me discuss Anna Karenina, because I really enjoyed it. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.